I would like to play this short audiovisual of her journey so far.
An epitome of grit, a compelling example of determination, an outstanding karyakarta, and above all, a shining example of what women can achieve in this country. Nirmala Sitharaman has inspired every young girl in this country to dream big. Born in Tamil Nadu's temple town Madurai, the seeds of Nirmala Sitharaman's extraordinary career were sowed in Tiruchirappalli, where she completed her graduation and spent most of her formative years. Young Nirmala had already set her sights on the national capital as she headed to the Jawaharlal Nehru University to pursue her masters in economics. After submitting her doctoral thesis on Indo-European textile trade, she moved to the UK, where she worked for a brief while with a corporate firm. After that brief stint, Miss Sitharaman returned to India to answer her true calling. Her plunge into public life began when she set up a school for underprivileged children, and from thereafter, she never looked back. From 2003 till 2005, she served as a member of the National Commission for Women, and in 2008, she was invited to become a member of the BJP's National Executive, and in 2010, she was appointed as the national spokesperson of the BJP. Articulate, assertive, and astute, she caught the attention of the national leadership with her ability to reach the masses. She made a mark for herself representing BJP at different forums across media platforms.
I, Nirmala Sitharaman.
In 2014, when the Modi wave gripped the country, Miss Sitharaman got her opportunity to serve the nation as she became part of the Modi cabinet as Minister for Commerce and Industry. In 2017, she became India's first full-time female defense minister, and in 2019, when PM Modi stormed back to power, she created history by becoming the country's first full-time female finance minister. When the world was jolted with a once-in-a-century pandemic, Miss Sitharaman played a stellar role in navigating the nation through troubled times. Keeping the mantras of Atmanirbharta and Sabka Vikas in mind, she ensured that India not only came out of the troubling two-year phase, but is now emerging as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. A fierce politician, an unfailing party worker, and an unparalleled finance minister, Miss Nirmala Sitharaman, we welcome you to CNN News 18's Town Hall.
I now invite our political editor Maria Shakil and the Honourable Minister on the stage for this session. Maria will moderate this session. Ma'am, please.
Grateful that you could travel all the way to Chennai. So thank you so much and welcome. I'm going to begin this conversation with your recent political tour. You have just returned from a rather grueling tour of Baramati. Before that, you were in Zahirabad parliamentary constituency in Telangana. Baramati is a bastion of Sharad Pawar. Telangana has complete dominance of KCR. What is giving you and your party that confidence that bastions of stalwarts can be breached?
First, let me thank the audience for being here and giving me the opportunity, CNN. And I'll start with a little bit of a banter, if you'll permit that. I thought this is South Conclave, and I'm being asked about Baramati. Maria, that's a very interesting question, but it is a fact that BJP, when it comes to elections, takes the business seriously. But my visit to Baramati was not so much for the election, it was more for strengthening my party in the ground. And which is what was the visit for in Zahirabad as well. And after all, Zahirabad is part of, once upon a time, United Andhra Pradesh, where I had spent a lot of time working.
Ma'am, BJP is in an expansionist mode. You have already identified catchment areas for 2024. While you have managed to make inroads in most states of southern India, as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, it remains a difficult terrain. Do you think people here will experiment only with Dravidian parties, and as far as BJP is concerned, they'll have to wait?
Well, not just Tamil Nadu, even Kerala, BJP is working to serve the people of Kerala as it is. They also have in the ground a lot of well-oiled party which serves there. And Tamil Nadu also, especially now, I see a lot more energy in taking up people-related issues. And of course, there will be a time as you go along when BJP will be able to capture the imagination of the people.
Southern states often argue, and they are arguing that perhaps more now, that they are being taxed more for their prosperity. That in the last few years, in the India story, they have contributed most, and that they have outperformed other states, particularly in northern India, on multiple parameters, be it economic opportunities, health, education. As the finance minister and someone who comes from this part, what are your thoughts?
Well, development happens faster in some states which have had a history of that kind of access to education, access to policy driven towards industrialization, and also where people are already exposed to a lot more, multiplicity, cosmopolitanism, and also English education. That way, Tamil Nadu has had the advantage because of being partly very actively under the British rule through the presidency, having had a lot of exposure to English education. So that is one thing. And second, because of the topography of Tamil Nadu, there was this very clear understanding of different governments over the decades that industrialization is a very important thing. And so since I would think 1960s, there's been a lot of emphasis on getting industries and investing for industries. And in spite of rural lives still intact in some parts of Tamil Nadu, it's majorly an urbanized state. So you have, and also the advantage of having seaports has given Tamil Nadu that kind of advantage. And people are very entrepreneurial. So there's no denying that all these factors together have given Tamil Nadu that advantage, that with the challenges, agriculture flourished somewhat, challenges grew more, but in the meanwhile, manufacturing came in, small and medium industries had that entrepreneurial spirit, and therefore the contribution of agriculture, even if it came down at some part in time, industry made up for it. And subsequently, because of the IT revolution, service sector also has come in. As a result, you find the state keeping pace with the industrialization, now with IT revolution into the tertiary sector as well. So they, as a result, obviously the state will be one of those lead states because of the grounding it has had in industrialization. But as regards this question about we are giving you more revenue, you, me itself tells you that the narrative is going on not a desirable route. Because if every state thinks that I am giving so much, I should get so much, it's just not going to work out. I've said this before, if within Tamil Nadu, you see the region which gives more revenue and those regions which don't give you that revenue, would you then justify that region which gives you more revenue saying, hey, spend it all here, man, don't take it to the other parts which are underdeveloped? Will it work? But I understand the frustration because repeatedly you're performing better. You, meaning many other states, are also performing. I belong to the state. I also see how, rapidly a lot of things are improving. But that itself cannot justify asking that much of proportion of income. Actually, sometimes you probably get more in some planned period earlier, and now under the Niti Ayogs, not so much which dispenses like planning commission monies, you have projects coming much more in some areas in Tamil Nadu, which probably doesn't go to Bihar from where you are. So would you then say, no, Bihar, we don't need any money because we don't generate that much revenue, let it all go to Tamil Nadu? Will a country prosper if we constantly draw this kind of artificial line? Then in Tamil Nadu, if I understand it right, only Coimbatore should get it. The rest of the areas cannot get anything. That's a very convoluted argument to say, I am giving so much, you give me this much. It's no transactional relationship. We're all part of this country. We're all part of the entire system which has to improve this country and pull it along for a greater level of development.
Ma'am, Tamil Nadu, for instance, since you're talking about it, they are arguing that...
You know, actually, I should have said all this in Tamil.
You can say it.
No, this particular answer should have been in Tamil. I'm sure many... I mean, your new recruit, Karthikeya Shelvan, should do this in Tamil now. என்ன கார்த்திகை புரிஞ்சிச்சா நான் சொன்னதெல்லாம் நீங்க தமிழ்ல எடுத்து சொல்லணும் இத.
Ma'am, Tamil Nadu, for instance, argues that its share in the national population is 6.21%, while its share in the GDP is 9.16%. Despite that, the state gets only 4.079% as devolution from central taxes. And in successive finance commissions, the share of the state has only decreased. The argument is that how will they fulfill their social responsibilities if the GST that they are dependent on, which is essentially the central funds, gets limited?
See, this narrative has been on for now at least 3 finance commission terms. And the state has repeatedly reminded, and many states in the south, Kerala onwards, have this as a very valid question to ask. Are we being punished for a very effective population, not a control, but population coming down, and probably the reproductive rate is now almost going to be negative? So are we being punished in the sense that you don't have enough number of people, so we will give you only that much, whereas states which have greater population, density of population higher, get more? This has been in 3 finance commission discussed. And if I know right, from the previous one, Y.V. Reddy Commission onward, there have been corrections made to it in the sense some kind of a making up for it, which may or may not be adequate. But the fact that the Finance Commission took the route of trying to amend it or to make up for it in some level itself proves that there is a recognition of the problem. And because there is a recognition, there are ways in which they are trying to make up for it. The issue is live, the issue is constant, the issue is remaining even now. What would be adequate is very difficult to determine, I would think. Because if you just look at population per se and say, give a deflator for those, or give a, offset for those who are densely populated as opposed to Tamil Nadu or as opposed to Kerala, these formulations can be contentious. But Finance Commission is quite seized of it, and they are probably addressing it not to the proportion of expectation, but somewhat.
So, ma'am, in general, when we look at the criticism that has come in, most of the finance ministers of this part have been critical of the GST model. They are almost saying that this game-changing model that we keep talking about has flaws and it has biases.
I'm very tempted to say something which I wouldn't normally say. I do not know if it is just a political narrative which is being thrown. I'm putting it back to you. GST Council, prior to the council was formed, had an empowered group of ministers who actually worked into the details of it and came up with a framework. Who was the pioneering champion of it? Asim Das Gupta, Communist Party man, West Bengal's former finance minister. He spent a lot of time working together with other finance ministers in the GST Council, now the GST Council, but the one before it, the Empowered Ministers Group, always was headed by a finance minister from an opposition-ruled party. Party in the center, opposition party to the center, the finance minister of that party would be the chair of the empowered group of ministers who actually worked into the nitty-gritty of GST much before the council was formed. Council was formed subsequent to the act got passed in the parliament. Asim Das Gupta is no BJP man. Asim Das Gupta is no right-winger. Do you think he would have come up with something which is going to be, I don't know what words I used to describe it, faulty, this, that? That's one argument. Another, it's an institution. For the first time after 1947 in India, a federal institution, constitutionally approved, is formed, and it is working for now 5-6 years. And in India, where 75 years we have worked with institutions and we still think we need to do some amendments. Just after 5 years, we think, oh God, this is so faulty, just throw it in the bin, I have a better solution to come up with. I think all of us should think about what's actually happening. And inside the council, to be fair to every member meaning finance minister from different states, we will discuss at length. And prior to us discussing at length in the council, the officials discuss in their own committees. And only then does it come to the council, and the council again thinks about whatever has been put forth by the committees, threadbare, and then we take a call. Now, if after that you still have ideas to improve it, very welcome. But dumping it and saying, I have a better proposition, sorry, we'll try it, but I'm not sure if that's the way to go about it. Institution building does take time. It's a painful job. All of us will have to contribute to it. To trash it is absolutely easy. Many a times people who have agreed inside the council come out and speak completely against their own decision, which I can understand. Politics takes different colors, different shapes, different opportunities, different times. But inside they've agreed. Every time, and even I must give it to the credit of the council, even during the pandemic, when borrowing at a big level had to be done, to arrive at that decision, it was a tremendous lot of sitting through hours on end and talking. No, this is no good. No, bring it this way, bring it that way. But it had all worked out. So it's all right. Some of us probably will have a greater level of patience, and a few others are probably not so patient enough, but institutions need patience.
Cooperative federalism was supposed to be the glue between the center and states, but we are seeing several states, largely ruled by opposition, have frequent run-ins with the center. There has been also a withdrawal of the consent to the CBI. There has been opposition to several legislation of the center as well. Where is it all heading? Do you think there is a need to revisit the concept of cooperative federalism, the role of various stakeholders here?
No, revisiting any idea I'm not against. Very welcome to revisit. What is it which is painful now that a revisit will have to happen in the light of the consultations which are happening with the center and the states? Even during the pandemic, the Prime Minister, probably via video conference, has held periodically consultations with the chief ministers and taken on board. And you know how those video conferences, even as they were happening, were being leaked out through telephones. In spite of all that, consultations have happened. Do revisit, no objection to it. But you
also are probably letting in a little fact which can be a bias, which justifies me to think that this voice against the so-called existing cooperative federalism you are indicating is essentially the opposition's voice. I will not allow CBI to come into my state. All right, your choice. But zero tolerance to corruption is not going to allow agencies to say, no, CBI is not being welcomed, so I can't step into this state. There are other agencies which are anyway going to come. Corruption cannot become a contention when cooperative federalism is a matter of discussion. In a way, it gives me the feeling that in the name of cooperative federalism, if people are telling us we don't want CBI to come, it means they are justifying corruption. They don't want it to come out. Simple as that. You just see. And you're also repeatedly saying opposition states, opposition states. Why should only opposition states? If that's the case, center and state. You can also have other NDA allies saying, no, we don't want. That doesn't happen. And it's not as if law enforcement agencies are not taking action against ruling party and their allies. So this is a bogey which political parties want to keep the public constantly misled by. Nothing else.
I'm going to move towards a very politically contentious issue, and you have recently said that when you were in college here, there were violent protests happening against Hindi in Tamil Nadu, and the students who were opting for, say, Hindi or Sanskrit, they were not eligible for scholarships by the government. A lot has changed since then.
Has it?
I'm asking you.
Very difficult to believe.
Then how do you view this entire language debate?
What I said, I stand by what I said. I'll repeat it any number of times. I think it's one thing to believe in an ideology and say, look, we don't want any other language, but a totally different thing to deny individuals their right to learn what they want. ஒரு தனி நபருடைய அதிகாரத்தை பறிக்கிறதுக்கு யாருக்கும் உரிமை இல்லை, என்ன கொள்கையாக இருந்தாலும். நான் சொன்னது நிஜம், நான் அனுபவித்தது நிஜம், அந்த அனுபவித்தது தான் நான் எடுத்து சொன்னேன். நான் படிச்சுட்டு இருந்த காலத்தில் ஹிந்தியோ சம்ஸ்கிருதமோ படிக்கிறதுக்கு நீங்கள் முயற்சி பண்ணிங்கன்னா டெஃபினட்டாக உங்களை நானா விதத்தில் உங்களுக்கு கிரிட்டிசிசம் வரும். தெருவில் நடக்கும்போதே கண்டபடிக்கு கீழ்த்தரமாக பேசினதெல்லாம் என் காதல் நல்லா இன்றைக்கும் ஒலிக்குது. Innikum, and let me say this in English, Maria, because your question asked that. Scholarships are denied to students who learn Hindi and Sanskrit. Even today, I challenge. நான் தப்பு சொல்கிறேன்னா நீங்கள் யாரோ ஒருத்தர் எழுந்து உடனே அம்மா வாயை மூடு தப்பு சொல்கிறேன் நீ சொல்லுங்கள். இன்றைக்கும் தமிழ் தவிர சன்ஸ்கிருட்டோ இல்லை ஹிந்தியோ படிக்கிற பிள்ளைங்களுக்கு ஸ்டேட் லெவல் ரேங்கிங்கில் முதலாவதோ ரெண்டாவதோ மூணாவதோ அஞ்சாவதோ 10வது ரேங்க் வந்தால் கூட இங்கே ஸ்டேட்டு மூலமாக கிடைக்கூட ஃபெலோஷிப் ஸ்காலர்ஷிப் அவங்களுக்கு கிடைக்குதா இல்லையா? கிடைக்கல, இன்றைக்கும் கொடுக்கறதில்ல. They don't give it if incidentally your second language is Sanskrit or Hindi, but you turn out to be the topper, and the state has a scheme by which the top 10 ranking students will be 10 or 15 or 20, I don't know, but the top ranking students will be given some kind of a scholarship to study. Now, in what way and what right does the state have to say one of the Indian language which the student studies, which is not probably Tamil, will not be treated as equal to the student who is learning Tamil? இது என்ன விதத்தில் பேதபாவம்? இது எந்த விதத்தில் ஜஸ்டிஃபையபிள்? ஏன் அந்த தம்பி நாளைக்கு உலகத்திலேயே பெரிய ஒரு கம்பெனிக்கு சிஇஓ ஆனான்னா அவங்கள நீங்கள் ஏற்றுக்க மாட்டீங்களா? தமிழ் படிங்கன்னு ஊக்குவிப்பது ஒன்று, நீ இன்னொரு பாஷை படித்தேன்னா பாரு உன்னை வெட்டி போடுவேன் கொலை பண்ணிவிடுவேன் நீ அந்த ஸ்கூலுக்கு போனால் எரிச்சு போடுவேன்னு பேசுறது நாகரீகம் இல்லாத ஒரு தன்மை. தமிழ்நாடு நாகரீகத்தோடு இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு ஸ்டேட். இந்த அராஜகமான பாஷை வர்றது ரொம்ப தப்பு. ஒரு மனிதனை நீங்கள் நிறுத்துறது தப்பு. அது என்ன கொள்கைன்னு சொன்னாலும் சரி, ஜஸ்டிஸ் பார்ட்டிலேருந்து வந்துச்சு, இன்றைக்கி டிராவிடியன் மாடலில் அது பார்ட்டு அப்படின்னா நான் ஒன்று சொல்ல விரும்புகிறேன். அந்த ஜஸ்டிஸ் பார்ட்டிலேருந்து வந்துச்சுன்னா அதே ஜஸ்டிஸ் பார்ட்டி தான் சர்ச்சில் நம்ம நாட்டை விட்டு 47 போன போது சொன்ன வார்த்தையை சொன்னாங்க. என்ன? வெள்ளையனே நீ போயிடாத எங்கள் ஊரை விட்டு, நீ தான் நல்லாட்சி கொடுப்ப சொன்னது. வெள்ளையனை போக விடாமல் நீங்கள் இங்கேயே இருங்க தம்பின்னு சொன்னது. இன்னைக்கு அந்த வெள்ளையனோட நாட்டையே கீழே தள்ளிட்டு நம்ம 5வது லெவலுக்கு வந்திருக்கோம். 75 வருஷத்தில் இந்தியா சுதந்திரம் அடைஞ்சு 75வது வருஷத்தில் நம்ம 5th ரேங்க்ல வந்திருக்கிறது. யூகேயை கீழே தள்ளிட்டு, எந்த யூகே சர்ச்சில் மூலமாக நம்மளை விட்டு போகும்போது இன்னும் 10 வருஷத்துக்குள்ளே இவங்க என்ன மாதிரி செதறி போயிடுவாங்கன்னு பாருங்கன்னு சொல்லிட்டு போனார் அந்த சர்ச்சில். ஜஸ்டிஸ் பார்ட்டியில் இருந்தவங்களும் அதே தான் சொன்னாங்க, நீங்கள் போயிடாதீங்க, நீங்கள் தான் எங்களுக்கு நல்லாட்சி கொடுப்பீங்க. அதனால் ஜஸ்டிஸ் பார்ட்டியிலேருந்து வருது கொள்கை. இன்றைக்கி திராவிடன் மாடலுக்கு அதுதான். அதை வச்சுட்டு நாங்கள் சொல்கிறோம் ஹிந்தி இங்கே வரக்கூடாது. தப்புங்க. தனி மனிதன் உரிமைக்கோசம் நம்ம எப்போதும் பேசிகிட்டே இருக்கோம் இல்லைங்க. இது என்ன ஆயிடுச்சு? என் உரிமை, என்ன மாதிரி இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒன்று 10 பேர் உரிமை போயிடுச்சா? என் தமிழ் பற்றோ டெல்லியில் நின்றுக்கிட்ட தமிழ் பேசுகிறதோ ஒன்றும் குறையில்லைங்க.
Since you have addressed that question, I'm going to move on to the Revadi culture debate, because that's a raging national debate and it has several stakeholders come up with their views. We have seen the Prime Minister begin that debate by saying it's Revadi, and thereafter DMK and other political parties submitted affidavit in the Supreme Court talking about their views. It's freebies versus welfareism now. So what the view is that what you see as freebie is welfareism in their point of view.
Very convenient argument. Because welfare is equivalent to public good. And I don't think you will have a disagreement with it. That which benefits a large section of deserving people, which is necessary, is welfare. Hospitals, good public schools meaning government-run schools, which don't commercialize education, good public infrastructure. These are welfare. Because you need good roads into the village, otherwise a pregnant woman is not going to be able to go to a hospital. You need some basic hospital and good roads there. You need education for children. These are welfare undoubtedly. But beyond this, if you want to give something, you're welcome to give it. And I would say, if you understand your state's finance and you think you have enough money to give that welfare measure, please do. And do account for it in your budget, because you said it to the public. நான் இலவசமா உங்களுக்கு இது கொடுக்குறேன். நீங்கள் கொடுக்குறேன்னு சொல்லதை கேட்டுட்டு அவங்க ஒருவேளை உங்களுக்கு ஓட்டு கொடுத்துட்டு நீங்கள் வந்துட்டீங்க பவருக்குன்னா, நீங்கள் அதை தயவு பண்ணி கொடுங்க, வாக்குறுதியை நிறைவேற்றுங்க, யாரும் வேணாங்கள. ஆனால் அதுக்கு செலவழிக்கிற பணத்தை பட்ஜெட்டில் காட்டுங்க, பட்ஜெட் மூலமாக அவங்களுக்கு பேயும் பண்ணுங்க. அவங்களுக்கு கொடுக்காம யார் அந்த பொருளை சப்ளை பண்ணுறாங்களோ அவங்களுக்கு. இப்போ உதாரணத்துக்கு நான் அடிக்கடி இந்த உதாரணத்தை சொல்லிருக்கிறேன். மின்சாரம், நான் இலவசமாக மின்சாரம் கொடுக்குறேன், நீங்கள் அதை எப்படி தடுத்து நிறுத்துவீங்க? இல்லைங்க, தடுத்து நிறுத்தலை. நான் 3 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடியே கூட சொன்னேன், ஒரு தரம் விவசாயிகளுக்கு நாங்கள் மின்சாரம் இலவசமாக கொடுக்கறத நீங்கள் எதிர்த்து பேசுகிறீங்க. இல்லைங்க, பேசலை. நான் அன்றைக்கும் சொன்னது தான், இன்றைக்கும் சொல்கிறது தான். நீங்கள் மின்சாரம் இலவசமாக கொடுக்குறீங்கன்னா கொடுங்க, தயவு பண்ணி கொடுங்க. ஆனால் அந்த மின்சாரத்தை உங்களுக்கு சப்ளை பண்ணுற கம்பெனிகளுக்கு சமயத்துக்கு நீங்கள் பணம் கட்டலைன்னா அவங்க அதை நிறுத்தவும் முடியாது. ஏன்னா கடைசியில் பப்ளிக் கஷ்டப்படுவாங்க, அவங்க சப்ளையை நிறுத்த முடியாது. ஆனால் நீங்கள் பில்லு கொடுக்காமலேயே உட்காந்துட்டு இருந்தீங்கன்னா, நீங்கள் ஓட்டு வாங்கியிருக்கீங்க, நீங்கள் வாக்குறுதி கொடுத்துருக்கீங்க, அந்த இலவசம் அந்த மின்சாரம் உற்பத்தி பண்ணுற கம்பெனி ஓட்டு கேட்கலையே, அவங்க நான் மின்சாரம் இலவசமாக கொடுக்குறேன்னு சொல்லலையே, பின்ன யார் அதை கட்டுவாங்க? அவங்க கட்டலை, நீங்கள் அவங்களுக்கு கட்டலைன்னா அவங்க ஒரு வேளை சரி எங்களுக்கு பில்லு வரல அப்படின்ட்டு தனிநபர் நடத்துகிற கம்பெனி மாதிரி அதை நிறுத்திட்டான்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. நீங்கள் உடனே என்ன சொல்லுவீங்க? நாங்கள் மக்களுக்கு இலவசமாக கொடுக்குறோன்னுங்க, மோடி ஐயா நிறுத்திட்டார் எலக்ட்ரிசிட்டின்னு. அது எந்த வரைக்கும் நியாயம்? ஏன் கரெக்ட் அது? கரெக்டாக அது? கரெக்ட் இல்லை. அதனால் ஸோ இஃப் யூ ப்ராமிஸ் சம்திங் and as an election manifesto issue, you want to give it. But do you please understand the finances of your state? And if you think your finances will support it, do give it and show it in the budget.
Narega and PDS, are there freebies or welfareism? Because Aam Aadmi Party says that their free electricity subsidy is similar to what Prime Minister Kisan Yojana is.
See, I don't want to get into an argument with each of the state. Narega is a dole being given to people in non-agricultural season when there is no employment in rural areas for only strictly 100 days. That was just brought in to ensure that people are not going to be without agricultural employment, and therefore you have to give it. So if you're trying to bring in false equivalence by bringing, what about this, what about that, people do understand what this debate is about. People understand, political parties also understand, but they don't want to yield that there is a legitimate debate which is necessary in this country. Let's all talk about it. நம்ம பம்மி பதுங்கி எதுக்கு ஓடுறோம்? அதை விட்டு பேசுங்க, கேட்குற கேள்விக்கு பதில் சொல்லுங்க, நீங்களும் கேள்வி கேளுங்க, நாங்களும் பதில் சொல்கிறோம். இது உங்களுக்கா எங்களுக்கான்ற வாதம் இல்லைங்க. மக்களுக்கு நல்லது பண்ணணும், அதுக்கு அந்த அளவுக்கு நம்மக்கிட்ட வசதி. After all, Tamil Nadu like state, we are leading in this, we are top so and so, we are top so and so, we earn so much, we give it to the center. You have money, pay the electricity then. You have money now. I can understand if there are states which don't have money and they've given a promise, they are not able to pay. உங்களுக்கு அந்த குறையே இல்லைங்களே, கடவுள் கிருபையில். நான் டிராவிடியன் மாடல் இருக்கும்போது நான் கடவுளுங்கிறேன், கட்டாயமாக சொல்கிறேன். கடவுள் கிருபையில் உங்களுக்கு நிறைய பணம் இருக்குது, கொடுங்க பில்லை. ஏன் ஒதுங்குறீங்க? You get it?
Yes, I did. Ma'am, oil prices are on a declining trend. Is there a Diwali bonanza on the offing for the consumers?
I'll have to actually talk to the oil marketing companies to understand where their recovery levels are. Because after all, there were times when they were even importing it at 120, 110, 118. I don't know what kind of losses they've made. I need to work it out with them.
The currency market has been badly affected by the constantly strengthening dollar. Indian currency, though, is holding on to its own, but there is a record low as far as today is concerned, and over the last few days of dollar against Indian rupees. What are the policy options that you're looking at?
Maria, this is a debate which is not going to go away. I know that. And I will, for the benefit of the audience, say how Indian rupee, because of the strength of our macroeconomic fundamentals, is holding out well, and the rate at which other currency vis-a-vis dollar has been, rate of fall of other currency vis-a-vis the dollar has been sharply much more than Indian rupee. So is that a consolation? Partly yes, because the strength of your economy speaks when you're talking about your exchange rate. And as a result, we are far better than many other countries whose currencies have fallen pathetically against the US dollar. Now, what is our strategy? The interventions, if at all, which RBI makes using the Indian Reserve, which I think nearly 75 billion has been used, essentially to stop the fluctuations, the severe volatilities. RBI is not aiming at fixing the rate, exchange rate. The government doesn't believe in it. Indian rupee and its exchange rates, rate is also left to the markets to decide how it's going to float or get fixated at some level. So RBI's intervention is more to avoid the fluctuation. The US Fed's action has an impact on all currencies. So we'll have to only be sure that the fluctuation is not going to be severe. On the one hand, some people do also speak that, a falling rupee also helps. Some people speak, I want that to be clearly understood, that a falling rupee helps in exports. Whether it does or it doesn't, theoretically it may, but in today's condition with the recession outside and demands not really being as adequately as it should be, even a fall in the rupee may or may not help our exports. We are all conscious of these basic facts. We'll have to keep watching.
Ma'am, before I open the floor for audience question, my last question to you. You have been a prominent face and you continue to be of your party, and then breaking the glass ceiling by being the first full-time defense minister, female defense minister, and then full-time finance minister. How do you see your own journey from Madurai to North Block?
If I were to be outside, I'll draw a lot of inspiration from it, because it's just not possible. And I would thank my party and the Prime Minister in particular for giving that kind of an opportunity and laying faith in the person. It's a divine blessing. Again, sitting in Tamil Nadu, I call the divine. ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு கடவுளின் கருணை கட்டாட்சம். என்ன மாதிரி எத்தனையோ பேர் தமிழ்நாட்டிலேருந்து படித்து நல்ல பெரிய பெரிய வேலைக்கெல்லாம் போயிருக்கிறாங்க. ஒரு அரசியல் பேக்ரவுண்ட் இல்லாத குடும்பத்துலேருந்து வந்தால் கூட எனக்கு இவ்வளோ பெரிய வாய்ப்பை என் கட்சி கொடுத்ததுக்கும் பிரதமர் கொடுத்ததுக்கும் நான் ரொம்ப நன்றி கடன் பட்டேன்.
I'm going to open the floor now, ma'am, for the audience questions. Please go ahead, Purnima. You can raise your hand and ask a question to the finance minister.
Firstly, introduce yourself.
I'm Daksh from Dhobiji. We're a laundry aggregator program, and my question is, since day one, the government has been helping MSMEs and small businesses to support them. But there is one industry, that is the laundry industry, which hasn't seen such policies or something to support them, except the UP government offering a subsidy for laundries. So my question and only question is that, can we expect new policies or something for the laundry industry, which is, predicted to be a $15 billion industry soon?
No, have you excluded yourself? Because it gives me an impression that you've excluded yourself. We don't name sector by sector, except when there was a situation which arose during the pandemic, when the court wanted a committee be set up. Please sit down. Committee to be set up. Kamath committee was set up, and the committee named a few sectors, 20 of them I think, to say please do extend. But it also didn't name many others. So, but that didn't mean that the scheme was not going to be available for them. It was available for everybody. I don't know whether you're registered as a MSME or whatever. The registration of your company itself will tell you where and under which program you can benefit. But do send me your details. I'll ask my office to look at it.
Yes. Next question.
You can introduce yourself.
I'm Sridhar Narayanan, ma'am. I'm a professor and I'm into entrepreneurship now. And as MSME, I'm advising a lot of companies in startups as well. But it's a very basic question, but I'm trying to bring it to your notice. When we raise an invoice, it takes around, the payment from the company takes around 90 days for us to pay, but we have to pay the tax and everything in advance. So it's a big impediment for a startup like us. We have been taking up with other forums, but if this is addressed, it will be helpful for many in startups like us.
This is addressed by saying those companies who have to pay you will have to pay you in time.
But it's a challenge, ma'am.
For which the government has actually taken up a lot of steps. In fact, even my recent address to one industry group was that within 45 days, they should clear the bills of MSMEs. I even highlighted to them saying, you claim that you owe so much when you file your accounts, and the registrar of companies also releases that. It's put in the website. Okay. So why is it that you don't mind putting it out rather than releasing the money to the MSMEs? I've asked this question. We are also bringing up with the TREDS and one more platform through which we are allowing discounting of the dues.
Okay.
And also saying that MSMEs can get their money that instant when they want, and whenever the companies do come to pay, they will. And as regards public sector enterprises, I've really been monitoring that their dues don't mount in relation to the MSMEs.
Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Yes.
First of all, identify yourself. And then go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. This is Kavita here. I'm from TCS, and thank you so much for being with us today. And it's I think after quite some time you're with us, and it's nice gathering. And I see there is so much more of your visits here very soon. So as an individual, I would like to just get your thoughts on globally, I'm from cybersecurity platform, and from seeing the kind of threats that is, evolving and spreading globally, I think you would have heard a lot about, US president have generated revenue for non-profit organizations also to strengthen their organizations by having the security controls. How do you see India from securing our environment rather than, I know we are coming up with a lot of regulatory policies and standards and all that, but how, what do you have in your mind from finance perspective, which is very critical in nature? What are your plans, ma'am, to protect our environment and our country?
In the financial sector, periodically there are reviews undertaken. Please sit down. Reviews undertaken as to how effective the firewalls that they have had are. So whenever I meet up with the regulators or with the banks or systemically important institutions, I do check that up with them, and that there's a cert in which actually looks at these cybersecurity matters. They are very active in engaging with individual companies, which are public sector companies, but also spreading the knowledge of how to handle it and bringing them together so that they can benefit from one another's learning. It's a continuous challenge. It's not as if we can address it in one sitting. It's also a challenge because you have to continuously update your systems. So it involves money, it involves technology, it involves good skilled manpower and sharing of thoughts. So there's just a lot of work, but it has to keep happening.
So we have with us BJP Councillor Umanandi.
My question, once again, congratulations, Mrs. Sitharaman, you have risen to the occasion. My question is to Ms. Maria and the entire CNN-News18 team. My question is to them. We saw, yes, it is for the entire team. We saw how Mrs. Sitharaman handled the press. Why was Mr. M.K. Stalin handled with kid gloves? Why was so much of drooling? And why was this interaction not allowed when he was there? We had so many questions to ask. Why? Because we people are articulate, we face the questions, we don't run away. When questions were raised in the parliament too, Mrs. Sitharaman was there to give the answer, but we saw how the same, perhaps that is a Dravidian model. I think the Dravidian model should have been questioned here by many of us. Perhaps you didn't want to shatter the myth in Tamil Nadu. Why are you people shying away from questioning the Dravidian model?
Hello, ma'am. I'm Gayatri Srinivas. You've always been an inspiring woman for all of us. இந்த கேள்வி வந்து நான் உங்ககிட்ட தமிழில் தான் கேட்கணும். கேள்வி இல்லை, இது வந்து ஒரு இன்ஃபர்மேஷன். நாங்கள் வந்து தமிழ்மொழி கூடம் அப்படின்னு ஒரு நிறுவனம் கடந்த 10 வருடங்களாக நடத்தி கொண்டு வருகிறோம். நீங்கள் சொன்ன மாதிரி இங்கே வந்து ஹிந்தி மட்டும்தான் படிக்கிறதுக்கு தடையாவோ இல்லை சான்ஸ்கிரிட் மட்டும்தான் படிக்கிறதுக்கு தடையாவோ இருந்தது அப்படின்னு நீங்கள் சொல்லியிருந்தீங்க. ஆனால் இங்கே நாங்கள் இந்த 10 வருட காலங்களாக எங்களோட அனுபவம் என்ன அப்படின்னா, தமிழ்நாட்டில் இருக்கிற மக்கள் அவங்களுடைய பள்ளி பருவத்திலையும் கல்லூரி பருவத்திலையும் தமிழே படிக்காம தான் அவங்க வந்து ஒரு என்ன சொல்கிறது வேலைக்கு போகிற அளவுக்கு இந்த தமிழ்நாடு இருக்குது அப்படின்ற அந்த ஒரு விஷயத்தை நான் இங்கே சொல்லணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஏன்னா இங்கே இருக்கிற ஹாலில் இருக்கிற எவ்வளோ பேரோட பசங்களுக்கோ இல்லை அவங்களுக்கோ எழுத படிக்க தமிழ் தெரியும் அப்படின்றது தெரியல. ஸோ அந்த ஒரு அவேர்னஸ் நம்ம மக்கள் எல்லாருமே தமிழ் படிக்கணும் அப்படின்றதுக்காக தான் அதை கொண்டு வந்தோம். ஸோ திஸ் இஸ் ஃபார் யோர் இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் மேம். தேங்க்யூ.
நல்ல முயற்சிமா. தமிழை வளர்க்கணும், தமிழை பேணி காக்கணும், தமிழை நல்ல தமிழை பேசணும்.
கண்டிப்பாக மேம். தேங்க்யூ.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Sumati from Vedanta. Of late, in the last 5 to 10 years, if we see, the number of protests which are happening across states, and particularly Tamil Nadu, if we see, the highest number of protests which has happened in the last 1 decade. And the highest NGO funding has also happened in Tamil Nadu. And is there any international design to stall the growth of the nation at large? What is the government looking at to curb these kind of initiatives which is stalling the growth of the nation at large? Is there anything which proactively government is looking at? Because this is affecting industries at large.
Maria, I would like to answer this question not so much about what this government is doing. I'd like to recall what the government earlier, the UPA 2 did. Dr. Manmohan Singh's time. This very Tamil Nadu saw active protests against Kudankulam. அணு மின்சாரம் தயாரிக்கக்கூடாதுன்னு கூடங்குளத்தை சுற்றி எத்தனை ப்ரொட்டஸ்ட் நடந்துச்சு. டாக்டர் மன்மோகன் சிங்ஸ் கவர்மெண்ட், UPA government, made sure that was halted, made sure that the international conspiracies which were propagating that were brought to the fore. And a lot of action was taken at that time. இங்கே நிறைய சீனியர் அனுபவஸ்தர்கள் இருக்காங்க, நான் சொல்கிறது தப்புனா சொல்லுங்க. So, when it comes to the question of nation and development, I think every government has done its bit, because there has to be somewhere some limit to development versus anything else. And anything else is also equally important. Address that. You know, we've seen about high big dams protests. You had to give greater relief, you have to support them, rehabilitate them. Every government will have to be reminded about it very well. But once done, you have to move forward. So I would like to just remind of that episode where not this current government. At that time, the ruling party of Tamil Nadu today was also a partner in that government. Did they object? Did they say, no, every protest which is happening in Tamil Nadu is so very legitimate, you won't touch them? No, they touched them. So let's think about it.
I have just enough time for 2 more questions. Please, Purnima.
But Purnima is not going at the back at all.
Yes, Purnima, please.
There are lots of hands there.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Vivek, and I'm from Dun & Bradstreet. My question is not, for my industry or for my sector, but more as an individual. So as a young management trainee, I still remember when Mr. P. Chidambaram announced the dream budget. Since then, what we have noticed with introduction of a lot of surcharges and cess, the direct tax, which affects a lot of individuals, is now the highest ever, which I have witnessed in my almost 3 decades of career. Now, is there any plan to address that? Because, we are becoming quite uncompetitive on that front. Thank you very much.
I think that's a very general observation which I may not agree with. Direct tax, say income tax for instance, it was Prime Minister Modi's government which has given you a second route for direct taxation with completely reduced rate if you forego all the exemptions that you're taking. It was this government which brought it. So, direct tax again, it was this government which has amended the minimum alternative tax.
Please
Sorry?
You're right, ma'am. On the corporate tax, yes, there has been reduction. My question was more on the individual income tax.
Individual income tax.
Not the corporate
The second
income tax.
track that I'm talking about is about individual income tax. You forego your exemptions, you don't want any of them, then come to the scheme which has simple, plain, lower rate of interest, lower rate of tax. That scheme was brought by me, I remember, in 2020 budget. That's the lowest ever in income tax. If you want to join that, you're welcome to join. We've not forced anybody. If you still think that you have, benefits to attain by remaining in that exemption-ridden scheme, you continue in that. But you want a lower tax, you come here. Forgo all the exemptions and come here. You get absolutely straight, just pay this much and finish. So there have been a lot of steps taken to simplify, reduce income tax for individuals. But if you're not wanting to come here, because even though it is lesser in rate, yes, you're still burdened by a tax rate which is higher because you've gained so many exemptions.
Purnima, last question, please. Yes.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. My name is Muthu Manigandan. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'll ask my question in Tamil itself. This is regarding MSME. நாங்கள் ஒரு MSME ஆக்சுவலாக ஃபினான்ஷியல் சர்வீசஸ் பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கோம். நீங்கள் நிறைய MSMEக்காக செஞ்சிட்ருக்கீங்க. பட் இங்கே தமிழ்நாட்டில் there is a problem. MSME council is not acting properly. We have registered a case where they are not even able to differentiate between professional fee and commission. So it would be great if you can look into it and help everyone as such. Because MSME வந்து large corporate support பண்ணுற மாதிரி தான் தெரியுது. It is not helping the actual MSMEs who are small and who are in need.
நீங்கள் MSMEக்கு அட்வைஸ் பண்ணுறேன்னு சொன்ன ஒருத்தர் இருக்காருங்களே, அவங்கள கூட நீங்கள் மீட் பண்ணுங்க. It might help. And then of course you're welcome to give me the information.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be open to. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, thank you for this candid and insightful chat, and thank you for taking all the audience questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful engagement, ma'am. It cannot be said enough how inspirational it is each time I hear you. Thank you for being here. And I now invite our Chief Content Officer of the News18 Network, Mr. Santosh Menon, to give away the memento to Nirmala ji. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause, please.
government officials and also leaders who they believe have influenced this entire crackdown on the PFI. This is the most